Hi there, and welcome to this webinar series in partnership with Family Councils Ontario. My name is Deborah Bakhti, and we are going to be covering in this webinar series, Now What? Helping residents' families with their emotional journey into long-term care. Let me start by sharing a little bit about myself and how I came to be doing the work that I'm doing today. I became a family member of residents in my family on 3 different occasions. The first was with my dad when he was diagnosed with Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia. And my mom was really struggling to take care of him at home with some of the cognitive impairments and his physical limitations. And she was grappling with home care and lots of trips to the emergency room. And finally, it came to the point where he needed to be placed into long-term care. And my dad lived in a small, lovely home for about 6 months before passing away in 2011. The second time I became a family member was with my husband, Ty. And in this picture, you can see he's celebrating his 65th birthday while being a resident in long-term care. And he lived in long-term care for 4 years before passing away in 2015. He had been diagnosed, as you can see, at a fairly early age with an incurable and degenerative and fatal disease that only 400 people in the world had at that point in time. And so he was a bit of a younger resident and could create a bit of a ruckus with the staff. But that was really my experience being a resident's wife for 4 years. And then the third experience was with my mom, Carol. And a few years after my dad passed away, she realized that she could no longer take care of herself safely in her own home independently. So we helped her move into retirement, independent living retirement home. And a couple of years in, her health started to decline, and that home could no longer take care of the level of care that she required. And so we helped her move into an assisted living home within a retirement home, and she lived there for a couple of more years before passing away in 2019. During all of this, I was working at an executive level in the seniors care business. I worked in the industry for over a decade. And it really became apparent to me that as I really understood the business structure of seniors care, I had also experienced being a family member, a customer. And so that's when I made the decision to retire from my corporate job at the end of 2017 and start the business and the work that I do now. And that started with writing my first book, Recipe for Empathy, 6 Strategies to Transform Your Families into Fans, which was really designed to be a resource support guide for people working in seniors care to help them understand the family journey and 6 different strategies to really become more relational and less transactional, which unfortunately healthcare can sometimes be. And then in 2020, I wrote my second book, Now What? Managing the Emotional Journey of Long-Term Care for Families, which has really become a fantastic resource for current and new families in homes that want to be able to have a bit more insight and knowledge and information about really this emotional journey that we don't always talk about for the family. This is actually on my website where I talk about the work that I do is to help to redefine the way you onboard new residents and their families. And when I think about the word onboard, that tends to be, my background was in HR, and you have an onboarding process or an orientation for employees. And I see that there's this great opportunity for us collectively to be more intentional with how we orient, onboard, welcome new residents and their families when they are going through a significant, sometimes incredibly heartbreaking life change. I know that's how it felt for me. And so to be able to be more intentional and by design, not by default, how do we welcome and inform and educate and really set that care partnership right from the start so that we can manage expectations? Because when we don't manage expectations, that's when disappointment can occur. And in that, we can minimize concerns and reduce conflict that can happen, because sometimes this is a new experience for families. Families don't know what they don't know, and the care teams are processing an admission on an already busy day. So this idea of being able to, this is the work that I do every day in working with clients and with families. And quite frankly, I see this as an opportunity to ask for your help as family council members to be a part of this redefining and redesigning how new family members and their residents come into a community at what can seem like sometimes a suboptimal situation and something that they never ever imagined that they would be needing this kind of support. One of the ways, and we'll talk a bit more about this as we move through the webinar, is to take the lead and be the guide that your families need and want. And if you think about when you first became a family member, from that, whether it be put on the list, getting the phone call, that admission day, and when you think about how that felt and how perhaps lost or alone or uncertain or fearful that you were, a lot of other families have that same experience. And here is an opportunity for us to take the lead and be the guide that even they may not realize it, but they really do need and want that support. The biggest thing I hear from families is when they start talking to other family members and read Now What, is that they no longer feel alone, that they're not the only one who's going through this or feeling this way. We can spend so much time as caregivers of really taking care of our loved one, our resident, in their journey, and yet for a family member, this is a big life-changing journey as well. This other concept that I want to share with you is how we can build the culture on the way in, one family at a time. Long-term care homes are a community. They're an ecosystem that has so many different players. You've got the care team members, leadership, residents, family. I mean, this is the residents' home and community, and as family members, it's your community as well. And every time a new family is moving in, it's an opportunity to be building that culture with each family, with each conversation, with some of the tools and strategies that we're going to be talking about in this session. I also want to invite you to be thinking about how you can share your knowledge and your experience. Whether you've been a family member for a few weeks, a few months, a few years or longer, there are probably things that you know that you've even forgotten about. And there are so many things that new families, they just don't know what they don't know. And so there can be this trepidation as to, and even clarifying what their new role is as a partner in care, because they're no longer that primary caregiver. And it's a whole new environment for them. So throughout this webinar, I'm talking about different ways that you can share your knowledge and your experience, that you can be helping to really redefine how new families come into your community and have the opportunity to contribute and to enjoy the benefits and the community environment that you have to offer. So what we're going to be covering in the next few episodes is we're going to dive a little bit more into admission and anxiety, which is a chapter in the Now What book, and talk about it from a couple of different perspectives. We're also going to touch on this role clarity of new family members and the relational triangle that I reference in the Now What book. Then we're going to talk about how family council can help with some of the things that I've already introduced to you. And finally, we're going to talk about a book club opportunity with Now What, and some homes that are really making some terrific progress in helping to build that community, particularly as there's more of an opportunity to be in the home and be present and meet other family members. So I hope that you enjoyed this initial introduction. I'm really looking forward to sharing more with you, and we will reconnect in the next episode.